Am I the asshole you tell me? I didn't invite my birth mom to my wedding. When my now husband and I, 25F, got engaged, my mom, 56F, couldn't wait to plan the wedding. She insisted on going dress shopping directly after we got engaged, to the point where she came and picked me up and took me to several small shops. I didn't mind at first, but I didn't know what kind of dress I wanted because we hadn't picked a venue or even a date yet. My mom boldly proclaimed to all her friends that we were getting married in late October. We had gotten engaged in late July. She then chose a venue without asking my permission, which was her little Baptist church. So naturally she talked to her pastor and arranged for him to initiate. Before I knew it, she had the flowers picked, and a friend hired as the photographer, who was charging several thousand to use her cell phone to take pictures. She was planning to make the wedding cake herself, and she hired an old lady to play the organ. At church one Sunday, I overheard her inviting people to this wedding she was planning who I barely knew. This was when I stepped in and said enough. I felt bad at first to say anything because she was so happy to dream and plan, but it was getting out of hand. She expected me to buy lavish decorations and wanted to transform the entire church into a sparkling wonderland. I tried to gently explain to her that I didn't have the money nor did I want any of it. My sister even tried to intervene and told my mom she needed to step down and let me make more of the decisions. As you can imagine, my mother did not take this kindly. She started texting and calling my fiancé, demanding that he grow up, be a better man, and get a higher-paying job for all of the fuss she wanted to have. This turned into a huge fight between her and me because I told her she was not allowed to speak to my future husband like that. She got very defensive and told me she needed space and asked me to not contact her. I respected her wishes and didn't speak to her for 2 weeks. Her birthday went by without hearing from me. She then wrote this long text about how disrespectful I was being, and how bratty and rude of me to not wish her a happy birthday. I tried to work it out with her, but she wanted her way or the highway. I then called around and cancelled all the plans she had already made. The whole situation was so stressful that my husband and I simply eloped at the end of the year, and went on to have a very private and simple ceremony. I didn't tell her until after the fact that we eloped, and I didn't invite her to our low-key celebration. I thought nothing of it until my husband's family said I should have invited her and it was unfair of me to leave her out. AITA. Reader's comments. She's not trying to plan your wedding, she's trying to plan the wedding she wished she had. Am I the ASS whole score 10? You are most definitely not the AH. She vastly overstepped her part, thinking all would be well. This was a huge and irreparable mistake. She was furious that my dad offered to pay for everything. It was just as well that she had stepped aside because she had dreadful taste. It was a cheap and skimpy affair and she would have ruined everything. Am I the asshole? Score 9. NTA. This also sounds a bit like malicious compliance. Moms can be obnoxious around weddings of their children, but that's no excuse that she did what she did. She essentially planned your wedding without your input. Am I the asshole? Score 7. OP and their fiancé would have been props in Crazed Mom's Barbie World wedding. AITA. Score 1. AITA for giving my daughter condoms behind my wife's back. My 43M daughter, 15F, started dating a boy, 15M, she likes. He is a sweet boy. My wife, 43F, and I like to keep our kids feeling safe to tell us anything. It is harder for them to tell her stuff, so sometimes I compensate for that. One day, my wife was coming home late. My daughter came to my room and asked if she could talk to me about something. I could tell she was nervous and embarrassed. She told me that she wanted to do something with her BF, but she doesn't want to get pregnant. And that she doesn't know how to start things. We had a long conversation about this. We talked about everything regarding sexual activity. And I'm glad I did because I realized how little she knew about some stuff. She didn't realize that boys can be uncomfortable too, how consent is very important, how she didn't know how to know her safe days, and hygiene, how being mature about it affects sex, etc. I gave my daughter condoms, advised her to buy others if these weren't fit, and told her to stay careful and safe. She smiled and thanked me. That night, I was talking with my wife when I mentioned our conversation. She was confused and said that she felt this conversation was very inappropriate. We argued for a while, but I didn't want to keep on arguing, so I joked about how we are short of condoms, so maybe we will have a baby. She was confused, then she realized that I had given some condoms to our girl. She was mad at me for giving her condoms and the green light to have sex without asking her. I felt like I was wrong for not asking her, so I apologized. AITA. Reader's comments. NTA et al. Your wife is acting naive. If the kid's going to have sex, she's going to have sex. And it can be with it without condoms. With or without knowledge. On behalf of all girls who never had a parent like this, thank you. For informing her. For being understanding. To be realistic. Am I the asshole? Score 10. Give her condom money or give her formula money. Condom money is cheaper. Am I the asshole? Score 10. On behalf of all girls who never had a parent like this, thank you. For informing her. For being understanding. To be realistic. Am I the asshole? Score 10. I was a leader on a youth campout. I was asking over to a bunch of boys around the campfire and I stopped when I heard them talking about sex. You can't get a girl pregnant if you do it standing up. You do it while she is on her period. If she is pregnant, look up superfecundation. And others I can't recall. I walked over and said, do you know what they call a guy who tries that? Daddy. The lack of sex education is appalling. Am I the asshole? Score 10. NTA, your daughter was going to have sex with or without your permission. You cannot stop her from growing up. What you did was the best thing you could do. You made sure that she was going to be safe no matter what. Am I the asshole? Score 7. AITA for refusing to forgive my ex so his mistress can have him. I don't know how to start this. It's very complicated and intertwined, and I'm very bad at putting my feelings into words, and even if I did, I don't want to make this too long for you guys. So I will try to compress it to a few paragraphs, and I will answer any questions for additional details that you deem necessary. My husband and I had some marital issues after the birth of our second baby. There was no lack of love or affection, at least that's what he told me. We still loved each other and we were basically in a rough place. My husband met his now GF at work and I guess he developed some form of feelings for her and her for him. He came to me one day and said that he loved me so much but that he wanted a break for a few months because we needed to work on our issues separately. I was heartbroken, but I agreed, thinking we were going to work on our marriage. Not a week later I heard he was sleeping with another woman. I filed for divorce and haven't seen him since. This was all 3 years ago. Our divorce was finalized 2 years ago. He has tried throughout the years to get in contact with me, but I refuse to even open his emails because I miss him and I know what he would be saying. Empty sorties and apologies. For me, he cheated even if not everyone agreed because we were on a break. His GF contacted me now asking me to forgive him because according to her he is refusing to make their relationship official. According to her, they love each other, but he is refusing to propose or start a family with her because he feels guilty about what he did to me. He tells her they didn't deserve happiness and she thinks it's all my fault. I just wrote please don't contact me again and blocked her on FB. She used an alternative account and wrote that I'm bitter and vindictive. AITA for refusing to help my ex's mistress playing family with him. How is that even on me? Readers' comments. NTA, I'm very proud of you for divorcing. Too many people will put up with this misery. And sorry, but my opinion is when you are married and on a break, you are still married, so his cheating isn't okay. You thought you were going to reconcile, there was no conversation about seeing other people. You don't owe him or his GF anything and the fault is his. He cheated while you were thinking you were working on your marriage. Just ignore these fools. Am I the asshole? Score 7. Seriously though, you can't even go on a break when married. Separation during marriage? Sure, but that implies mutual steps to either recover a relationship, by working on yourselves individually, or to divorce, beginning to separate assets and lifestyles, but either way, you can't see other people, aka cheat, without consequences. Plus, I've never heard of a break being used to see other people. It has always implied removal from relationship duties to work on yourselves, not to be single but not single or in an open relationship. So where did he get that from in the first place? Definitely NTA, he's just a bad partner all around, it appears, made up a rule, and even failed to communicate said rule, for breaks, just to cheat in his first relationship and made up a reason to deflect as to why he won't fully commit to his side piece. Am I the asshole? Score 7. AITA for leaving my husband and his daughter. I didn't know how to title this, but let me give you a backstory. My 37M husband and I, 35F, raise his 13F daughter in a nice gated community. We are an outgoing family that likes to do fun things like camping and traveling. My stepdaughter and I have a great relationship. She is like a daughter that I never had. My husband had a previous marriage, but that didn't work out because his ex-wife cheated on home and kicked him and his daughter out, and months after his divorce that's when I met him with his little daughter. It was a horrible thing what the women did to them. I never met her but did see a picture of him and her on their wedding day. The other thing he told me was that she kicked him and their daughter out because he was making enough money for their family and she slept with a guy from a random bar. One day, I was cleaning my husband and my bedroom because we were going camping that day, and my husband and our daughter left to get some snacks for the trip. I found my husband's phone on the dresser. I left it where it was because he leaves it home a lot. I heard his phone ring at the last minute so I ignored it. My husband and I aren't fans of going through each other's phones. His phone went off again and it irritated me. I know what I said about going through your partner's phone, but I just want to know who called. I unlocked his phone and clicked the caller profile, and I'm trying my best to give you guys all the details. I saw that the unknown number was texting my husband sweet things and I could see my husband's messages also. Who was this person? My husband never talks to anyone I don't know without telling me. If I told you guys who was in those messages you wouldn't believe me. There were pictures of my husband ex-wife, and I am confused. Why is he talking to his ex? I looked at all the messages, even the one when she asked about their daughter. I was surprised that my husband was still talking to his ex. I got to the end of the messages. They'd been talking for 7 years without my knowledge. Their messages contained sexual flirting, like asking about each other private parts and sex. There were dick pics and her private pics as well. And yes, I know what your guys are going to say. She is the biological mother, but I've been raising this girl since she was 3, so yes, I am hurt to find out he was talking to his ex behind my back. I feel dumb that this was going on behind my back. He told me he wouldn't speak to his ex again after what she did and I believed him. I am upset that didn't tell me about his ongoing relationship with her, and there is nothing wrong with her asking about her child, nothing at all, but I feel betrayed by him. Before my husband and his daughter came back I left with only my purse. I needed to take a break, but it felt like I was doing something wrong. AITA? I will update you guys on anything that happens. I will be staying with my mom for the time being. Please give me feedback, I don't know what to do. Readers' comments. But please let the daughter know that you are leaving cause her father did something unacceptable and that it has nothing to do with her, and that you would be open to meeting her independently. If that's the case, you just cannot live with her dad anymore. Am I the asshole? Score 9. NTA. But please remember that none of this is the child's fault. Am I the asshole? Score 10. AITH for telling my MIL she will no longer have access to my child after she shared private information. I 35, F, have a beautiful healthy baby girl 6 months old who was born at 34 weeks. She was born with an eye condition causing her to need glasses to see properly. Because of this condition, she sees a vision therapist to help strengthen her eyes. We have only shared this information with my parents and MIL, not because we are ashamed, but because my child's medical needs are no one's business. The problem is my husband and his brother had a pretty bad falling out. His brother was arrested for domestic violence and left homeless. My husband financially helped him to move to the current state where my MIL resides because a protective order was issued. During this time, his girlfriend began to harass me on social media. It became so bad that I reached out to my MIL for help in stopping it since she was still in contact with her. A few months later my husband and I were told his brother moved and was back with his girlfriend. My brother contacted us asking for money when my husband and I had a huge argument. My husband told my MIL not to inform him of anything concerning his brother or tell his brother anything about our family. My daughter received her diagnosis at 3 months and we confided in our parents hoping for support if the prognosis was severe, legally blind. Well, yesterday I received an anonymous text from an unknown number, saying that it is karma that my daughter has eyes going in opposite directions, and is probably the R word. That my daughter was born prematurely because of my rotten womb. I called the number and it was the girlfriend. Shaking and livid my husband and I called my MIL demanding to know how his brother knew of our daughter's condition. She lied saying she had no idea. I reminded her no one but our parents knew, so she had to have told him. She began to cry and that's when I told her I no longer trust her and she will not have access to my daughter. She then texts my husband and his brother saying I hurt her feelings and is now closing this chapter and staying out of my husband's life because of his bitch wife. Edit, the girlfriend has said he hates me because she had DM'd me looking for bail for money. It went to my spam folder. I didn't see it until hours later. Within those hours she messaged me again bringing up my stillborn son and my unborn daughter at the time, also talking garbage about my husband's job. After those messages I ignored her. I wasn't going to help someone who attacked me that way. I told my MIL and sent her the messages. She made excuses for the girlfriend. She excuses her crazy behavior all the time. This time I have had it and we chose to go no contact. Readers' comments. So, just after one fight where she did wrong, she calls you a bitch wife? You did the right thing. NTA. Am I the asshole? Score 5. NTA. The trash took itself out. Congratulations on your baby. Am I the asshole? Score 9. AITA for breaking up with my pregnant girlfriend because I don't want to be a father. Advice needed. AITA for breaking up with my pregnant girlfriend because I don't want to be a father. I, 25M, had been with my now ex, 23F, for a little over 3 months. I always made sure we used lots of precautions when having sex. She was on birth control and I always used condoms. I wanted to avoid a child. I have known for a long time that I do not want children. I find them annoying and they would severely limit my ability to do the things I enjoy, traveling, outdoor stuff, etc. Unfortunately for me, my ex didn't have her period when she was supposed to and it turns out she's now pregnant. She came to me and told me she was pregnant. The first thing I did was suggest an abortion. We don't live in a state where it's legal, so I offered to pay for her flight and hotel and told her I'd be happy to come with her to get it done. I have a stable job and make good money, so it wouldn't be too much of a hit for me. She works as a receptionist and doesn't make a lot, so I figured it would be better for me to pay. That's when she told me she was hoping to keep it and that she wanted me to help her raise the kid as its father. I have no intention of being a father. Beyond just my dislike of children, I'm not ready for that. I made it very clear that I didn't want the baby, but she kept insisting that I'd have a change of heart once it was born and just try it out. After a long exchange, I told her that if she intended to keep the baby I would not act as a father. I broke up with her and told her that I would pay child support once it was born, but that I expected her to respect my wishes and keep the child away from me. Since then she's been frantically texting me, begging me to come back and telling me she'd forgive me. She's sent me voicemails crying, "It does hurt to see," but I haven't responded. The other day she texted me saying how she can't raise the kid alone and how I'm forcing her to get the abortion just by leaving. She called me an asshole, an abuser, and a sexist. She ended the text begging me to talk again. I certainly feel shitty. I liked her and we had a good relationship before this, but I just don't want to be a father. I'm already bitter about the fact that I'll have to pay child support for 18 years, which will somewhat limit me financially. I also feel it isn't right for a parent who doesn't want their child to be involved. I'd just end up taking that pent-up anger and bitterness out on the child who is ultimately innocent, which I feel isn't right. With all this said, I come here to ask, AITA? I certainly feel like one, but I also stand by what I did. Clarifying edits. On the topic of a vasectomy, I tried. I met with a doctor last year and asked about getting one, but he refused and said every doctor he knows won't do it until you're at least 30. It's a conservative state, and while I dislike the politics, I was born and raised here, so I'm still attached to the state and have never felt the urge to leave. Someone said I should have flown elsewhere to get one, and I guess they're right, but I just didn't think about that. On the topic of birth control, I bought the condoms myself, so they were fine. Whenever we were done I'd throw used condoms. I'm the dumpster, so I don't think she went dumpster diving. I asked her on our first date if she was taking birth control and she said yes. I took her for her word. Maybe foolish to just believe her, but if she was lying she'd be the first I've met to lie about that. Most girls I've met are honest about it. I assumed she was on the pill since that's the main birth control I know, but maybe she was on something else that I'm not educated enough on. That being said, I'll follow your advice and lawyer up plus get a paternity test. IDK how long that will take, but whenever I get it done I'll update here with results. Thank you for your judgments. I've been away for a bit, but I'm catching up and trying to read what I can. I'll be checking back periodically and replying to some people. All further feedback is appreciated. Update 1. I have hired one of the better family court lawyers in my state. She has someone representing her pro bono. It has been made clear to my ex and her representative that she is not to contact me personally and that all contact will go through my lawyer from now on. A paternity test is scheduled for next Wednesday. I don't know how long it will take to get results, but the test is happening. If the child is mine, we will go to court to determine child support payments and will set up the process for me to sign away my rights. Another clarifying edit. I was gone for a while, and while reading through some comments I have found a topic I'd like to clarify for anyone left who still checks here and cares. In the beginning, I said I made sure to use lots of precautions. I had thought people would take away from the idea that I had made my intention to not have kids clear at the beginning. Just wanted to make that clear. She told me she wasn't looking to have kids. I should have been more clear about this, I guess. I was under the assumption that she didn't want kids, which is why I was blindsided by her change of heart once she was pregnant. I understand it happens, feeling change or whatever, but for me, it was a big shock. When I go to get the paternity test started, she will also have an ultrasound and we'll talk then. I'll update you on Wednesday. By the way, the text will take a few days to process, so I'll also update you with the results. Readers' comments. If she continues pregnancy, you should also ask for a paternity test as you were actively trying to prevent pregnancy. She can take a blood test while pregnant with no risk to the baby. That has to be done before you are on the birth certificate. You've only been together for 3 months. Just be sure before you sign anything. Am I the asshole? Score 9. My cousin's son almost got the baby trapped, but my cousin insisted on, and paid for, a paternity test. Turns out the ex-boyfriend was the father. The gal knew she'd slept with both guys, but went after the wealthier family first. Am I the asshole? Score 10. As someone a good bit older who specifically wanted a kid and tried for one, this part was the most absurd. Do not have a kid to try it out. Don't have a kid if you don't want one. Don't even have a kid unless you're pretty damn sure you're committed to it all the way. Am I the asshole? Score 10. AITA for telling my husband that I feel like I hate him. Advice needed. I, 36F, gave birth for the third time via C-section on July 6. I had complications after birth and I ended up being hospitalized until July 11. My husband, 37M, requested time off from work for only 1 week and he was scheduled to go back to work on Monday, July 17. We already have a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old at home. On July 17 I had my post-C-section follow-up and with 3 children at home, unable to drive, and still in pain and recovering, I asked my husband to get out of work early so that he could take me. I asked him while I was holding my newborn, my toddler was sitting next to me and my oldest was walking in the room. My husband's reaction shocked me to my core because he went ahead, raised his voice and said, "What? Why?" And I explained that the doctor must check my incision and clear me to drive, etc., and he still went ahead and said, "I already requested too many days off, can't someone else take you? Why do you have to go? Can you please reschedule it?" At that moment I felt so vulnerable and broken at his mercy. I had been on the verge of dying due to complications with my heart. And there he was getting upset because I had a doctor's appointment at only 11 days postpartum. He has paid time off. All he had to do was request the time off, but he didn't want to bother. He begrudgingly left the room and texted his supervisor to request the time off. I felt so heartbroken, vulnerable, and sad. If the person that I'm supposed to depend on 100% isn't there for me in my time of need, then what's next? I got mad and I told him that I was deeply hurt and that I was appalled at his behavior in front of the girls. I told him that I would have never said that to him and he said, "Well, I'm not you," to which I replied, "One day you will be old and you will need help." He said, "Well, put me in a home, I don't want to be anyone's burden." That's when I realized what he implied, I was a burden to him. I said, "I feel hate for you right now for doing this and saying those things." He walked away and took me to my appointment. I haven't talked to him. He hasn't tried to talk to me. Over time we have become professionals at living together and not talking to each other. So this will drag on. I'm very hurt because he hasn't even asked if I'm feeling okay or not. We can be in the same room taking care of the children, but we won't say a word to each other. He's ignoring me so that I can feel inadequate for what I said and apologize to him. Readers' comments. Start marriage counseling and create a Mommy's New Life Fund, where you put money away and prepare for the worst. Am I the asshole? Score 2. I had to do this because while I was in a hospital bed with chest tubes draining infection from my lungs, he accused me of faking it, so he'd have to take care of my kid. My child had her preschool graduation, an ice skating performance, and was filming a commercial among other things while I was hospitalized. My parents came from another state and between them and my sister, they made sure everything was done and she was happy and safe. That was the moment I knew it was over. My dad left me a blank check for a divorce attorney, but I still had to save up enough to make my break. Am I the asshole? Score 6. AITA for not inviting my sister to my wedding after she told our parents I'm a prostitute. Advice needed. I, 27 female, am about to get married, to my girlfriend, 26 female. This all started years ago when my favorite child, my stepsister, 24, went on a family vacation with us. Me and my stepsister shared a room, and as young teenagers do, we threw multiple tantrums. As such we decided to stick to ourselves, as she turned her back to me for the rest of the holiday and ignored my existence. After coming home, she continued to ignore me and pretend I didn't exist. This almost broke our parents up. After this, she convinced her mother that I was a drug-addicted prostitute who sold my body for sex. This was untrue. I will admit I had a minor weed addiction at the time, and I had dated a couple of guys, exploring my sexuality, which she knew, as I was only out as gay to her at the time. But I was in no way selling myself for sex or an addict. I did a bit of weed a couple of times before parties, that was all. After this, I was completely isolated and destroyed by my family. They started to ignore me and treat me as though I was nothing but an eyesore. This escalated into a couple of fights with my dad, where I tried to prove my innocence but to no avail. This forced me to come out as gay before I was ready, as she threatened to tell our religious parents. This took a toll on my mental health, and I suffered in that house for years. This eventually led to me getting kicked out and disowned. Years later, the truth finally came out about all her lies. She, in a drunk night, confessed to her boyfriend about how she ruined her stepsister's life because she was jealous and had her insecurities at the time. This led to my father tracking me down and apologizing for all the trauma he inflicted on me in my youth. I now am with a loving girlfriend and have a 2-year-old daughter with her. My life has finally gotten to a place where I am happy, so this completely made my world crumble. I forgive my father and stepmother, as I believe in second chances. We have gone out to a couple of meals together along with my daughter and fiancé. My parents love my child and want to be a part of their granddaughter's life. In 2 months I am going to marry the love of my life, and I foolishly invited my parents. I wanted to trust them, but some things never change. I decided to not invite my stepsister who ruined my life, but my family insisted that I do because she is sorry and regrets all she did to me. I, however, know that she is a manipulative, selfish person and saw past her lies. I refused to invite her to my wedding after she destroyed my childhood. After saying this, my dad started to tell me if I didn't make up with my sister and invite her to the wedding, then he wouldn't go himself. He claims he can't choose favorites and that it's either both of his kids there or he can't go. I want my dad to take me down the aisle, but I refuse to let my stepsister back in my life. So am I the asshole for not inviting my sister to the wedding? Edit. Thank you for all the kind words and comments. It means a lot to me to hear that from so many people. I didn't expect this to blow up as much as it did, and you are all such amazing, loving people. For clarification, I was 17 at the time of events and my stepsister was 14. I understand now her youth is mainly to blame. After considering it, I have decided to cut off my family. As a lot of people pointed out, I was immature and not seeing the bigger picture. My father and stepmother are more at fault in this situation, but my childish anger clouded my view. My stepsister is still someone I hate and will never want in my life. However, she was just a teenager at the time. My parents should have been more responsible. I will be having a face-to-face conversation with my father and stepmother organized for Thursday. This is for me. I need closure before completely cutting them out of my life. My wonderful fiancé will be accompanying me as well as her brother. I have decided if all goes well I will ask her brother to walk me down the aisle, as her family has been more of a family to me than mine ever was. Readers' comments. So your dad, who kicked you out, shamed you, and abandoned you, says that you need to invite your sister because he can't choose one side? Where was this mindset years ago? Sorry girl, but just lost his number. Your dad and stepmom didn't change, they just want to use you. BC, you're the only daughter with a child and they want to have a grandchild. Edit, NTA. Am I the asshole? Score 8. He did choose a side when he chose to believe his stepdaughter's lies over his own daughter's truth for so many years. He did choose a side when he and your stepmother essentially kicked you out. You graciously accepted him back in your life when he apologized, though I would be furious that he believed your stepsister's boyfriend but not you, and invited him to your wedding and to be able to be a grandparent to your child. And he threw it all back in your face by choosing your stepsister over you once again. It's not his call to make about whether or not you choose to have her at your wedding, and she's a grown adult, so there's no reason he and your stepmother can't attend without her. But he's trying to control your life and your choices. Even if she has changed, that doesn't make you obliged to forgive her or have her in your life. NTA Op. Am I the asshole? Score 10. Am I the asshole for leaving my wife and kids? Advice needed. I'm sure the title will lead most to say yes, but I feel right in my reasons to leave. This happened years ago. I married the wrong woman. My ex is internally a very angry person and wanted to be very controlling, usually in varying dramatic ways, and eventually years of this caused our divorce. Together we had 3 boys, 3 and 4 years apart. My eldest was 9 when the divorce happened. My ex took them to her parents' house, a 20-minute drive from our house that I had built myself 10 years prior. She burned my house down not long after while I was at work. No one was hurt and I have no real proof it was her, nothing came of it. The fire was suspicious, but it was in the days before doorbell cameras. I think she just lit a massive fire in the fireplace. So I left. I had a job that was very specialized, high in demand generally everywhere, and back then you could get a job with a smile and a handshake. First I went to a major city in Canada that starts with T, saved cash for about a year, and then moved to a small town about 2,500 kilometers from home. In this small town, I kept the same job, ended up meeting another woman, and we had 1 child together. She and I are still married. My kids from my previous marriage would come to stay with us for summers during school break. I thought they enjoyed the summers. They built go-karts and raced them for 1 year. We were always camping, etc. My eldest dropped out of high school at home, and my younger 2 from the previous marriage eventually moved in with us for their last years of high school. They grew up. They've had children. I have 10 grandchildren and they're starting to grow up too. I'm dying. Good days and bad, but the good are quickly getting rarer. My kids are talking to each other about it, and individually to me. My youngest son, from my current marriage, called my second youngest for support after having dealt with me on a particularly bad day. My youngest thinks his older brothers hold a great deal of resentment towards him for being my replacement family, and me for leaving them with a mother who didn't spend child support on things like electricity or running water. I haven't spoken to my oldest children about my conversation with my youngest yet. I'm not sure if I should bring it up or let them if they want to. I felt justified with my decision, but I am no longer sure I'm at peace with it. Am I the asshole? Info: if your wife was a violently unstable pyromaniac who starved the kids, why not take your kids with you, or rescue them at any point? I assume her behavior was known by others as well, or documented even. Am I the asshole? Score 9. Because OP deep down just wanted to walk away and start over. OP is an ass. He brags about being able to get a job in any city he wants and then picks a city half a country away from his children. Am I the asshole? Score 10. AITA for kicking SIL and her wife out of my house for calling me a transphobe. Not sure this is the right website, but I feel that I have to vent and ask for judgment because this is becoming very infected. Also, this is a throwaway. I had my son 3 months ago and it's been the greatest thing I've ever experienced. I love him so much. SAL started making remarks since I found out that it was a boy, that I was being backwards assuming that he was a boy, and she got very agitated whenever I said he and insisted I didn't know. In the beginning, I laughed it off and told her not to worry. If he says otherwise I will respect that, but for now he's my baby boy, and the odds are, I'm a math teacher and my husband always finds it hilarious that I start talking odds, but the odds are that he will still be a he. When my baby was born she started calling him they and them. I ignored it. She could say whatever really. Yesterday she and her wife, Mil, Fil, Bil, and his wife were having dinner with us. She started again saying how I shouldn't call him he. I said that I could call him whatever I wanted until he said otherwise, and that she should stop saying they and respect my wishes because this is getting ridiculously confusing. That's when she called me a transphobe. When she uttered these words I saw red and was so angry. I told her that she was out of line accusing me of something like that and that she was never welcome in my house again. She threatened to call social services to take him away and I lost it and started yelling at her to get out. Now my husband and his family think I'm the for kicking her out. But I never want her in my life or around my child again. Reader's comments. NTA at all, but your husband should also be on your side, especially after the CPS threat. The fact that he stood by, and was okay with that is concerning. Am I the asshole? Score point 6. People who have never dealt with CPS don't understand how incompetent and destructive they can be. As a child, I needed their help the most and all they did was stir up a hornet's nest, abandon me, and make the domestic abuse ramp up. Anyone who threatens CPS is threatening the life of your child. Straight up. NTA. Am I the asshole? Score 10.